Okay, I want you to picture a scenario. And I think, honestly, every single person listening has felt this, probably in just the last day or so. You're in a conversation, could be face-to-face, maybe over text. You see those little gray bubbles pop up, and then they just stop.
The pause.
The pause, the silence, and right away, I mean, it's almost the physical reaction. Your brain just starts yelling at you.
Yeah.
And saying, fix this, say something, fill that gap. It's this magnetic pull to just make noise, any noise.
It's a very primal reflex, I think. We're sort of wired to see silence as a problem that needs a solution, or maybe even a threat.
Right, it's a reflex test.
Yeah.
Daughter taps your knee, you kick, the conversation pauses, you speak. But today, we're going to look at what happens when you decide, very consciously and very uncomfortably, to just override that reflex.
I'm glad you said uncomfortably.
We are taking a deep dive into this really compelling narrative case study. It's titled The Clarity of Restraint. And it's all about this character named Anvika.
And what I love about this source is that it's not, a list of 10 tips for better communication. It's a story. It's about this woman, Anvika, and her kind of internal war with silence.
Yeah.
And the central theme here, the thing that just hits her like a ton of bricks, is this realization that not responding is a choice.
Which, let's be honest, sounds great on a poster. Not responding is a choice. But in the moment, when you're just staring at someone and that silence is just stretching out, it feels impossible.
It feels dangerous. And that's really what we're going to get into.
So our mission today is to unpack this whole narrative. We're going to look at Anvika's internal shift. We really want to understand how silence can function not just as an absence of talking, which is how I usually see it, but as an active, intentional tool. And we're going to dig into a really crucial distinction she makes between urgency and actual responsibility.
That distinction is the key to the whole thing. I think most of us walk around confusing those two every single day.
Oh, I know I do. My phone buzzes. I feel like I am responsible for buzzing back immediately.
Exactly. And to frame this, we have to look at the starting point, the before Anvika. In the source, she's not some Zen master sitting on a mountain. She's pretty frantic.
It's who's. The text describes her initial state as one of just constant scanning. She would respond immediately. But here's the detail that really, really got me. She wasn't responding because she had the perfect answer.
No.
She was responding because, and this is a quote, responding felt necessary.
But let's just stay with that word necessary for a second. That is such a heavy word. It doesn't mean she wanted to talk.
Right.
It means she felt she had to.
It implies survival. Like, if I don't speak, something terrible is going to happen.
And the text says she felt this unspoken cue to speak, clarify, or explain. Just think about that pressure. It's atmospheric. Nobody's actually asking her to explain herself.
But she feels this weight.
This weight in the air that says, you need to fix this uncertainty now.
It's like being a goalie, but the other team hasn't even kicked the ball yet. And you're just diving all over the place just in case.
That is a perfect analogy. You are exhausting yourself, defending against nothing. But the source actually digs into the why. Why do we do that? Why did Anvika feel this compulsion? And the text is pretty blunt about it.
Yeah.
It says the urge to resolve uncertainty wasn't always about seeking clarity. It was about escaping discomfort.
Escaping discomfort. That hits home. Because silence is uncomfortable. It feels awkward. It feels heavy. So we just throw words at it to make that feeling go away.
Precisely. It's an anxiety response. The text actually calls it the habit of answering before listening fully.
Wow.
When your primary goal is to stop feeling awkward, you aren't listening to the other person. You're not even really listening to the situation. You're just listening to your own anxiety.
Okay, but hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't that just being polite? If I'm at dinner with someone and they stop talking, right, and I just sit there staring at them, isn't that rude? Isn't filling the gap just like part of the social contract?
And that's exactly what Anvika thought, too. She confused being a good conversationalist with this anxiety-driven filling. But the source makes a key distinction. Politeness is about the other person's comfort, this behavior. This was about her comfort. She was speaking to soothe herself, not to actually help the other person.
Oof. Okay, that's a distinction I maybe wasn't ready for. So she's using words as a shield.
She's using words to keep the whole structure from collapsing, or, so she thinks.
So Anvika is in this state of high alert reactivity. But then the narrative shifts. She decides to try something different.
Yeah.
She decides to pause. And I want to be really clear here. The source doesn't paint this as some kind of relief. It wasn't like, finally, some silence.
No, not at all. It says the pause felt unfamiliar and almost uncomfortable.
Almost uncomfortable is, I think, putting it mildly. There's this one specific line in the text that just captures the fear perfectly. It describes her internal feeling during that first intentional pause. She felt as if something important might collapse if she didn't fill the space quickly enough.
Collapse. I mean, just think about the stakes of that word. She's not worried it'll just be a little awkward.
No.
She's worried the relationship, the connection, the whole moment itself will physically just crumble into dust.
It's the fear of the void. We equate this constant noise with, like, structural integrity. So if the noise stops, we think the whole structure is failing.
It's like you're leaning against a door that you think is unlocked, right?
Yeah.
You're just pushing and pushing, bracing yourself with all your weight to keep it closed.
And what happens in the story? She stops pushing.
Yeah.
She lets that silence just sit there. And honestly, reading this part, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Sure.
I was waiting for the person she was with to get angry or walk away or ask, what's wrong with you? And Anup.
Nothing.
The text is so blunt about it, it just says, but nothing did. The moment just remained open. The situation stayed completely intact. The roof did not cave in.
And that realization is the pivot point for the entire story. It's the moment she realizes that the catastrophe she was imagining was entirely internal.
Right.
The external world, the conversation, the relationship, it was perfectly capable of surviving a few seconds of silence.
That feels like such a betrayal of our instincts, though.
Yeah.
We are so wired to think that we're holding the world up with our words.
And we are. And finding out that the world can hold itself up can be a little bruising to the ego, but mostly it's just liberating.
Yeah.
It means you aren't Atlas. You don't have to carry the whole conversation on your back.
So once she realizes the sky isn't falling, she starts to really analyze what she'd been doing. And this leads to what I think is the biggest aha moment of the entire piece, the distinction between responsiveness and responsibility.
This is a profound insight. And it's tricky because in our culture, we use those words almost as synonyms. He's a responsive employee. He's very responsible.
Right. I highlighted this like 3 times in my notes. The text says she noticed how often she had confused responsiveness with responsibility. So let's break that down.
Okay.
Responsiveness, in this context, it's the reflex. Ping pong, stimulus.
It's just speed. It's pure mechanics.
But responsibility, I mean, that feels heavier. That feels like duty.
Anvika had basically merged the two. She felt that to be a responsible person, a responsible friend, a colleague, whatever, she had to be immediately responsive. The text says she would step in or speak up or clarify, even when nothing was truly at risk.
That phrase, false burden, comes to mind. She was carrying a burden that nobody actually asked her to carry.
Exactly.
But I do have to ask, what about a scenario where speed does matter? If my boss emails me asking where a file is, surely restraint isn't the right move there.
It's a great question, and the source actually kind of alludes to this. It's not about ignoring the request. It's about the quality of the response.
Okay.
If you reply in 10 seconds with some frantic, half-correct answer because you're terrified of the silence on her end, have you actually been responsible?
Right. I've just been fast.
Exactly. You've been responsive, but not responsible. Responsibility might mean taking 5 minutes, creating a silence, to find the actual file, make sure it's the right version, and then send it. The silence serves the better outcome.
So restraint isn't about doing nothing. The source defines it not as avoidance, but as authority.
Restraint is authority. I mean, think about the people you respect most in a meeting. Are they the ones chattering over everyone, filling every single dead air pocket?
No.
Or are they the ones who wait and listen and then say the one thing that actually needs to be said?
It's always the second one.
Always. That's restraint. It's the ability to hold back your power until it's actually needed.
Yeah.
The lesson she learns here is just crucial. Not every question demands an instant answer.
And it implies that some questions actually need that time to settle. By rushing in, we might be robbing the moment of its actual truth.
Or you might be robbing the other person of their own realization. If you jump in to save them from the silence, you stop them from processing what they just said.
That's a really good point. But I want to talk about the emotional risk here.
Yeah.
Because even if I get the logic, even if I understand restraint is authority, there's still this nagging fear. If I'm not constantly engaging, responding, validating, won't people just think I'm cold? Won't I seem distant?
That's the fear of space versus distance.
Right. The source addresses this directly. It says, it didn't create distance, it created space. But what does that actually look like? Because in my head, space and distance are kind of synonyms.
Physically, maybe? But emotionally, I think they're opposites.
Hmm.
Distance is a wall. It's me shutting you out. Space is a room. It's me inviting you in, but giving you room to breathe.
Okay, I like that. Room to breathe.
And the text tells us what filled that space for Anvika. It wasn't emptiness. It wasn't the cold shoulder. It says she felt a quiet confidence.
And this is where it gets a little philosophical. Where did that confidence come from? Because usually, I think confidence comes from knowing the answer.
Right.
I'm confident because I have the data.
Yeah.
I'm confident because I have the perfect comeback ready.
We love certainty.
But the text is explicit. It says, this confidence did not come from certainty.
It came from trust.
Trust. Okay, we need to unpack this because trust is a word we just throw around. Trust the process, trust your gut. But the source is very specific about what she was trusting.
Yes. There are two specific types of trust mentioned, and I think they're the antidote to that anxiety we talked about at the very start.
The first one is trust that she did not have to rush herself.
This is self-trust,
Yeah.
and this is probably the hardest one. It's trusting that your value in a conversation isn't tied to your speed. You don't have to sprint to be worthy of being there.
That's deep. It's the idea that I am enough, even if I'm thinking. I am enough, even if I'm silent for a second.
Exactly. You are not earning your keep by generating noise.
And the second one is trust that silence could hold a moment without breaking it.
And that's trust in the relationship. It's believing that the connection between two people is actually strong enough to endure a pause.
That's a litmus test, isn't it?
It really is. If a relationship breaks because of 5 seconds of silence, it wasn't the silence that broke it.
You've already broken
It was already broken. The silence just revealed it.
Wow. That's a reality check.
Yeah.
So if we're constantly filling the silence, maybe it's because we're afraid the relationship is too fragile to handle it.
Often, yes. We're just patching cracks with words. And Vika realized she didn't need to patch the cracks. The foundation was actually solid.
It really changes the definition of communication, doesn't it? We usually think communication is about output, words per minute. But Anvika's story suggests that the highest form of communication might be knowing when not to output.
Absolutely. The source lists the reasons she chose not to respond in those moments. It says, not because she didn't care, not because she didn't know.
But because she was learning that choosing when not to speak was also a form of clarity.
There it is. Silence as clarity. When you remove all the clutter of unnecessary words, the filler, the nervous explanations, the reactive fixes, what's left is the truth of the moment.
It's like clearing off a cluttered desk. You can finally see the surface. You can see what you're actually working with.
And you can see the other person more clearly, too. You can hear what they aren't saying.
So let's bring all this together. We've looked at Anvika's journey from that frantic, necessary responding to a place of intentional restraint. We've seen the fear of the collapse and the realization that, the roof stays on.
It's a shift from external pressure to internal authority.
And the source material boils this down to 4 key lessons. And I don't want to just rattle these off like a grocery list because I think they're really steps in a process.
Okay, let's look at them that way. What's the first step?
The first lesson is, not every situation requires an immediate response. That's the awareness piece. It's just noticing the phone ringing and realizing you don't actually have to pick it up right now.
Right, breaking that reflex.
The second is, silence can be an intentional act, not confusion. That's the reframing. It's telling yourself, I'm not lost, I'm just pausing.
Which leads right into the third lesson. Restraint creates space for understanding. That's the outcome. When you pause, you actually learn something.
And the final one, which circles all the way back to what we just discussed, waiting can be a form of self-trust. And that's the internal state.
And that's the hardest one to master. But the narrative gives us a little glimpse of what happens when you do. It says Anvika sensed that her silence was beginning to change how she met the world.
That's such a fascinating line, how she met the world. It's not just about conversations anymore.
No, it's about tempo. When you stop rushing, you stop treating the world like an emergency. And when you stop treating the world like an emergency, the world often stops acting like one around you.
It's almost contagious. If I slow down, you slow down.
Exactly. A calm, restrained presence can settle an entire room. We've all seen it happen. The person who speaks the least often controls the energy of the meeting.
It's amazing how a story about doing less, about not speaking, can actually give us so much to talk about. It really just flips the script on how we navigate our daily interactions.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go into my next conversation and just shut up.
Well, maybe not shut up. Let's just wait.
Breathe, trust.
Trust is the whole key.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the clarity of restraint, we really want to leave you with something to think